The Immigration Bureau is currently detaining those without proper ID. Look, here's another one, the third one now. 2nd and 4th Avenue need to pay attention. If you don't have proper ID, please leave immediately.
Recently, there has been a surge in Chinese individuals being detained by the US Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE. This has sparked concerns within the community. At the end of July, reports emerged that Asian supermarkets in Buffalo, New York, and Rochester County were raided by ICE agents. Multiple Chinese customers confirmed to reporters that the place was sealed off by ICE on the morning of the 30th. Law enforcement officers entered the supermarket and checked the identification documents of both customers and staff. Some Spanish-speaking immigrants were taken away on the spot. A Chinese customer recalled the supermarket was in chaos at the time and no one dared to speak. The officers checked everyone's documents, and if they didn't pass, they couldn't leave. After conducting the searches, the officers took away mobile phones, computers, and employees' business documents and records, including pay stubs and personnel files. Reports suggest that the extent of the searches went far beyond routine identity checks, indicating a systematic investigation targeting the entire business. Some Chinese witnesses also pointed out that the main branch of the Asian supermarket in Rochester was similarly raided by ICE almost at the same time as the Buffalo incident. The official account of the ICE office in Buffalo has recently been releasing frequent updates about the arrest and deportations of Chinese immigrants. On June 11th, ICE announced the deportation of a Chinese man named Xiao Baohe, who had been convicted of manslaughter. He received a final deportation order in March and was removed from the US on June 3rd. The following day, ICE reported the arrest of another Chinese man who had been convicted of gang assault. He is currently in detention awaiting deportation procedures. In a statement, ICE noted that our communities are much safer when convicted felons are expeditiously sent back to their home countries. In addition to Chinese supermarkets, Chinese restaurants have also become areas of focus for ICE raids. At the end of June, Jian Haozhang, the owner of the China Moon restaurant in Camden, New York, was taken by ICE. In response to media inquiries, ICE stated that Zhang entered the US in 1990 with a fraudulent visa and was issued a deportation order by an immigration judge in New York in 1999, requiring him to leave the US by July 2000, but he did not comply with the order. This foreign national has now been issued a final deportation order that is executable. An ICE spokesperson declined to disclose the next steps for security reasons. It is noteworthy that in this recent wave of ICE arrests, even immigrants who have lived in the US for over 30 years and are deeply rooted in their communities may not escape. On June 16, Huang Gangshong, a Chinese immigrant who had been running the Jingfen restaurant in upstate New York for 25 years, was arrested by ICE. Records show that Huang was ordered to be deported to China in 1994 after being charged with processing forged documents when he entered Miami International Airport at the age of 18 in 1993. Despite the immigration court's ruling for his removal, he stayed in the US illegally. Over the following decades, he changed his name to Roger Huang and eventually settled in the small town of Owego in upstate New York, where he opened the Chinese restaurant. As a result, although Huang Gangshong had been living illegally in the US for over 20 years, that did not exempt him from facing deportation proceedings. Under the reinstatement of removal provision of the Immigration and Nationality Act, anyone who illegally re-enters the US after receiving a deportation order will have their original removal order reinstated and immediately enforced without the need for a new hearing or a new deportation order. Additionally, they will not have the right to apply for most forms of administrative relief or bail. There have also been reports of ICE activities in Brooklyn's 8th Avenue and Bensonhurst areas. Some have even seen ICE agents laying in wait outside Chinese supermarkets targeting individuals. A small landlord on 8th Avenue shared that one of his undocumented tenants was arrested in the morning by ICE officers who were waiting outside his door. This news quickly sparked widespread discussion within the community. In response, some individuals organized self-help efforts offering recommendations for lawyers, contact information for translators, and even senior immigration lawyers who provided guidance in the community group. Reiterating The advice: if stopped, don't run. First, show a copy of your passport or green card and then say you need to contact a lawyer. As the number of arrests continues to surge, ICE enforcement actions have escalated. On July 20th, in an interview with CBS News, ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons stated that ICE will arrest all individuals living in the US illegally even if they have no criminal record. He also emphasized that the agency will intensify efforts to target employers who hire undocumented immigrants. Recently, hundreds of suspected undocumented immigrants have been arrested at workplaces in Nebraska, Louisiana, and California, including 10 minors. When asked whether employers would be held accountable, Lyons responded that his agency will crack down on American companies hiring unauthorized workers. He added that these operations not only focus on immigration law but also address related criminal issues such as forced labor and human trafficking. Furthermore, Lyons pointed out that ICE will prioritize resources for deporting illegal immigrants with serious criminal records. But if other legal residents are discovered during these operations, they will also be arrested in accordance with the law. He noted that some sanctuary cities, which refuse to hand over non-citizen detainees to ICE, have forced agents to go deeper into communities to carry out their duties, leading to an increase in collateral arrests. Lyons stated that he aims to focus on handling criminal immigrants who have been identified by local or state law enforcement as public safety threats and are already in custody. But when local authorities do not cooperate, they must enter communities to carry out arrest. He emphasized if they are here in the United States illegally, yes, they will be arrested. According to the Migration Policy Institute (MPI), in the 2024 fiscal year, nearly 236,000 encounters, including entry checks and detentions, occurred involving immigrants from China and other Asian countries in the US. This figure is significantly higher than in previous years, highlighting the overall increase in migration flow. Meanwhile, data from US Customs and Border Protection (CBP) shows that in the 2024 fiscal year alone, over 24,000 Chinese citizens were arrested at the southern border, marking an increase of over 8,000% compared to the 2021 fiscal year. In fact, the total for the first half of the year has already surpassed the entire 2023 fiscal year's total. During the Biden administration, ICE's enforcement focus was primarily on cases involving serious criminal records, national security risk, or recent illegal entries. But since President Trump resumed office in January, ICE has expanded the scope of its immigration law enforcement. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller proposed a goal of arresting 3,000 individuals daily. Although this target has not yet been met, Congress has allocated billions of dollars to strengthen deportation and enforcement capabilities. This recent wave of arrests by ICE has certainly caused a shockwave within the Chinese community in the US, but is not without cause. Reports have specifically highlighted that one reason behind ICE's action is the high crime rate among illegal immigrants, meaning many of those targeted have criminal backgrounds. On July 8th and May 29th, ICE arrested two Chinese nationals, Chen Jian and Yang Rihui, in Potsdam, New York. They were accused of using fraudulent methods to target elderly Americans, scamming $42,000 and $20,000 respectively. Both individuals are detained by ICE without bail and are awaiting deportation proceedings. In May, ICE arrested Song Nanjun and Liu Jirui in Rhode Island and New York. The two are suspected of participating in a transnational fraud and money laundering scheme targeting elderly Americans and Canadians. They are charged with conspiring to commit wire fraud and money laundering, allegedly using fraudulent pop-up messages to deceive victims, with a total amount involved exceeding $5 million. Song held an expired tourism B2 visa, and Liu's visa had also expired. Both are currently in federal custody, awaiting further judicial procedures. On March 24th, ICE arrested a Chinese national, Ming Xizhang, in New York for illegally acting as an agent of a foreign government without notifying the U.S. Department of Justice. Zhang legally entered the U.S. in June 2000, but after violating the terms of his entry, he was classified as an illegal immigrant. He was convicted of engaging in activities as an unregistered foreign agent suspected of being linked to espionage or export controls. Zhang is currently detained by ICE and is awaiting deportation proceedings. ICE New York office director John Sukaris stated that an illegal immigrant involved in espionage, sabotage, or export controls could face deportation. On February 4th, ICE enforcement and removal operations in collaboration with the Needham Police Department in Massachusetts arrested a Chinese woman at a residential property. According to an ICE press release issued that same month, the woman entered the US legally on a tourist visa in May 2019, but failed to depart by the required date in August of that year, resulting in her being classified as an illegal resident. What's even more concerning is that investigations reveal that the woman had already been wanted for multiple serious crimes in China or Taiwan, including embezzlement, fraud, and felony drug trafficking. ICE officials noted that the criminal charges in her home country triggered the fugitive and criminal alien enforcement priority, which is why this operation became a high priority target. Acting Director of ICE Boston's Enforcement and Removal Operations, Patricia H. Hyde, stated in a press release that this joint operation aimed to remove foreign criminal suspects who posed a threat to the community's safety. She emphasized that federal agencies will continue to work closely with local law enforcement to ensure public safety is not compromised. As for the Chinese supermarkets and restaurants targeted by ICE, multiple operations have shown that their employers engage in activities such as falsifying or altering Form I-9, charging employment fees and brokerage fees, and even collaborating with smuggling rings to provide guaranteed jobs and income for undocumented immigrants. These actions constitute typical cases of aiding illegal entry and illegal employment. For example, the owners of 2 Chinese buffet restaurants in Minneapolis pleaded guilty in federal court for knowingly employing more than 10 illegal workers and now face hefty fines and imprisonment. In Washington, D.C., in May, ICE issued I-9 audit notices to over 100 restaurants, resulting in a labor shortage crisis for many eateries that heavily rely on immigrant workers. Employees even stopped showing up for work out of fear. In summary, these Chinese nationals are being charged or convicted for a range of serious crimes, including unauthorized foreign agency, fraud targeting elderly individuals, and transnational money laundering. At the same time, there is speculation that the reason the Trump administration is targeting Chinese illegal immigrants may be related to the growing negative reputation of Chinese nationals in the US in recent years. In terms of telecom fraud and property crimes, the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, has issued warnings noting the prevalence of Chinese-language robocalls targeting the Chinese community. These calls often impersonate government agencies or banks to steal personal information and funds. In March, 2 Chinese nationals were arrested in Oregon for credit card fraud at a Target store. In the summer of 2024, 5 Chinese nationals in California and Nevada were indicted for their involvement in a major elder fraud scheme, with the amount involving exceeding $27 million. In terms of drug-related crimes, in July 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice issued a report indicting a Chinese national for importing precursor chemicals from China capable of producing millions of lethal doses of fentanyl, highlighting China's crucial role in the transnational drug trafficking chain. In October of the same year, 8 Chinese chemical companies and their employees were indicted in Florida's Middle District for attempting to distribute synthetic opioids and precursor substances. In January 2025, a federal grand jury in New York convicted 2 Chinese chemical companies' executives on charges of smuggling precursor chemicals and money laundering. The case holds a symbolic significance for U.S.-China drug cooperation negotiations. Additionally, reports have indicated that Chinese funds, channeled through domestic and foreign brokers, are used to provide money laundering services for Mexican drug cartels and fentanyl networks, further complicating enforcement efforts. In addition to drug and fraud, Chinese nationals in the U.S. have been involved in significant human trafficking and dangerous pathogen smuggling cases. In June, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Detroit announced the indictment of 2 Chinese nationals on charges of conspiring to smuggle dangerous biological pathogens, making false statements, and committing visa fraud, showing that some transnational crimes have infiltrated the public safety sector. Earlier in the year, ICE's Homeland Security Investigations conducted a 2-day raid in the New York area on a Chinese-run human trafficking and drug trafficking syndicate arresting over 20 members and dismantling a long-standing criminal network spanning both China and the US. In the context of the recent escalation in immigration enforcement, attorney Zhen Chunzhu, a long-term immigration law practitioner, pointed out that the Trump administration's hardline policies are essentially just enforcing existing immigration laws rather than intentionally suppressing immigrants. The government has a responsibility to enforce the law, and deporting individuals who have entered illegally is a basic duty. After years of lenient enforcement have led to the accumulation of millions of illegal immigrants, and with the Trump administration's stronger enforcement, social disruption is inevitable. Mr. Zhen explained that ICE's enforcement focus is primarily on illegal immigrants with criminal records or those who have already received deportation orders, rather than legal asylum applicants awaiting hearing or foreign residents holding valid visas. He stated that immigrants waiting legally can be assured as they are not the target of enforcement actions. On the other hand, among the 390,000 illegal immigrants of Chinese origin in the US, there are indeed groups who have been forced to flee their homeland due to political or religious persecution. The Guardian reported earlier that a woman using a pseudonym, Jenny, fled to San Francisco with her young daughter after being harassed and persecuted by the Chinese government for violating the one-child policy after the birth of her second child. Although undocumented in the US, she worked as a nanny for years and eventually married a US citizen, which allowed her to stabilize her situation. Similarly, Uyghur individuals have faced religious persecution. UN human rights experts have repeatedly condemned the Chinese government's re-education camps, mass surveillance, and torture against the Uyghur population in Xinjiang, leading thousands of Uyghurs to flee the region and seek refuge in the US and other countries. These cases highlight that among the illegal immigrants arrested by ICE, there is a group of vulnerable individuals who fled their home countries due to political, religious, or ethnic persecution. Behind their illegal status in the US often lies a difficult journey of escaping oppressive regimes in search of basic human rights and safety. The founder of Free Sculpture Park in California and a sculptor Chen Weiming stated that applicants from China who sincerely seek freedom and democracy should not panic. He said, although these dissidents are still waiting for their status review, during their time in the US, they have actively participated in anti-communist activities and even protested outside the Chinese consulate. If they are arrested for this, it would only further demonstrate their beliefs and sincerity, and the court will take this into consideration. Mr. Chen noted that the border policies during the Biden administration have been too lenient. He said, it's like leaving the door open, anyone can come in. He argued that if this is not controlled, it will place a heavy strain on US social resources, especially in healthcare and social welfare. He also mentioned that new immigrants from Latin America often express anger when their relatives are arrested, reflecting the tension between policy enforcement and humanitarian concerns. But he emphasized that compassion or humanitarian concerns should not undermine the rights of ordinary taxpayers. Overall, while ICE's arrest of Chinese nationals may seem sudden, they are always based on clear immigration or criminal grounds. The perception of being arrested without reason is often due to individuals concealing past traffic tickets or criminal records, or due to immigration paperwork errors, which lead to the feeling of being unjustly targeted. In reality, immigration law provides clear grounds for deportation or non-eligibility for relief in cases involving controlled substance convictions, overstayed visas, or discrepancies in I-94 information. If ICE agents find that a suspect meets these criteria during database checks, they have a legal basis to issue an arrest warrant. In summary, every ICE arrest is backed by specific legal provisions, administrative orders, and enforcement priorities, whether focusing on individuals with serious criminal backgrounds and illegal residents, triggering reinstatement or removal mechanism, or expanding collaboration with local law enforcement networks to include communities, airports, and schools in routine enforcements. These actions are not random or without cause. In light of this, Sociologists warn that under such high pressure, widespread enforcement, the only way to navigate these challenges is to deeply understand policy trends and be well prepared with proper identification and procedural rights in order to secure a chance for oneself and one's family.
老美的农业部又解雇了70多名外籍研究人员。
The U.S. Department of Agriculture has fired over 70 researchers, most of whom were postdoctoral fellows from China. The USDA stated that the dismissals were related to food safety, and these researchers from countries like Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China will no longer be allowed to participate in USDA research projects. The statement also mentioned that the researchers were not informed in advance and found out they were fired only when they tried to use their access cards and discovered they no longer worked. The news has caused a stir within the Chinese community. Some netizens have commented, "It was about time. Food safety and agricultural security are paramount for any country. To ensure the safety of U.S. food supplies, the Department of Agriculture has carried out security checks and dismissed researchers from hostile countries like China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. This action is absolutely necessary." Others have remarked, "The U.S. crackdown on CCP infiltrators has finally begun. Of course, these individuals couldn't be informed in advance, or they would sabotage the process. This is the right approach. Over the years, the CCP has infiltrated the U.S. with too many spies, but they've all been under close surveillance by U.S. intelligence agencies. Now they will be anxious every day, reluctantly trying to flee, or face being fired or even arrested. Their good days are over." Political commentator Tang Jinyuan noted, "The CCP's infiltration into the U.S. agricultural sector is multifaceted. For example, it has purchased agricultural land, such as WH Group, and directly acquired the U.S.'s largest pork producer. There has also been widespread theft of U.S. agricultural intellectual property, grain, seeds, and genetic data, among other things. Just last month, 2 Chinese researchers, a couple, were charged by the U.S. Department of Justice for smuggling agricultural bioweapons, specifically toxic fungi, into the U.S. One of the individuals was a loyal CCP member. Following this, the federal government announced plans to prohibit Chinese citizens from purchasing U.S. farmland and to end agricultural research collaborations with hostile countries. U.S. Agricultural Secretary Rowlands emphasized that foreign enemies would not be allowed to control U.S. land, laboratories, or livelihoods. Tang Jinyuan added, "The decoupling between the U.S. and China, which started in sensitive fields like technology and military sectors, is now spreading to the agricultural sector, which is relatively less sensitive. This is a reflection of the escalating Cold War and confrontation between the U.S. and China." Analysts pointed out that the showdown between the US and China began when Trump was re-elected, and he hasn't wasted a second. While the trade war 2.0 appears to be subsiding, a deeper, more intense espionage war between the two nations has already unfolded. Due to the accumulated crises, the Trump administration has had to act swiftly, tackling the most urgent issues first. Currently, Trump is targeting CCP infiltrators from 3 directions. The first target is Chinese researchers, visiting scholars, and students with CCP or military backgrounds. Since these individuals don't hold U.S. citizenship, deporting them is relatively straightforward. Those considered high risk but lacking enough evidence are being expelled to avoid future problems, like the postdoctoral researchers mentioned earlier. Those with clear evidence of wrongdoing are arrested immediately, such as the so-called scholars involved in smuggling agricultural bioweapons. The second category involves CCP infiltrators who hold U.S. citizenship. A recent case reveals that U.S. law enforcement has begun to act against these individuals. The U.S. Department of Justice announced that Chen Guanggong, a Chinese-American engineer from California, pled guilty on July 21st to charges of stealing U.S. trade secrets. He faces up to 10 years in federal prison. Gong holds both U.S. and Chinese citizenship. While briefly employed at a Los Angeles-based R&D company last year, he transferred over 3,600 company documents to personal storage devices. He has since posted a $1.8 million bail and remains out on bail. Gong is 59 and used to live in San Jose. He was staying temporarily in Thousand Oaks and was arrested on February 6, 2023. Federal prosecutors say he stole trade secrets developed for the US government, including technology to detect nuclear missile launches, track ballistic missiles, and monitor hypersonic missiles. According to Gong's plea agreement, his actions resulted in an estimated economic loss of more than $3.5 million. However, industry experts believe the actual damage is far greater, given the extreme sensitivity of the stolen secrets. In January 2023, Gong was hired by the victim company to work in one of its laboratories as a specialized integrated circuit design manager, responsible for designing, developing, and validating infrared sensors. Between March 30th and April 26, 2023, Gong transferred thousands of documents from his work laptop to 3 personal storage devices. Among these were more than 1,800 documents transferred after he accepted a job with a major competitor on April 5, 2023. Gong was arrested on February 6, 2024, and appeared in court the following day. At the time, the case was classified as a minor federal offense. A woman named Ms. Chu posted bail for Gong, securing his release with a $2.5 million bond, but he was placed under location monitoring and curfew. Just 20 days later, the U.S. Assistant Attorney's Office officially filed charges against him for stealing commercial secrets. The 3,600 documents he transferred contained highly sensitive content. The Department of Justice stated that these documents included blueprints for precise infrared sensors for space-based systems designed to detect nuclear missile launches, track ballistic missiles, and hypersonic missiles. Other sensor blueprints were also included. These sensors are designed to allow U.S. military aircraft to detect incoming heat-seeking missiles and take countermeasures, such as jamming the missile's infrared tracking capabilities. Some of these documents were later found on storage devices seized from Gong's temporary residence in Thousand Oaks, California. Gong is also accused of transferring commercial secret files related to the development of next-generation sensors capable of detecting low observable targets while enhancing space survivability. He also transferred blueprints for mechanical components used to cool the company's sensors. These files are among the company's most valuable commercial secrets, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Many documents were marked as proprietary, official use only, confidential, and export controlled. The Department of Justice also noted that between 2014 and 2022, Gong frequently visited China while employed at several major U.S. tech companies. He submitted numerous applications to CCP-managed talent programs. In a 2019 email, Gong mentioned that he took the risk of participating in the program, believing he could contribute to the CCP's high-end military integrated circuits. Experts say that CCP infiltrators with U.S. citizenship often have strong financial backing, depending on their value and risk to the CCP. In this case, the large bail amounts and the involvement of individuals with suspected CCP ties suggest the legal process will be slow, as similar cases have often been handled leniently. However, based on this plea agreement and the timing, it's clear that Gong's legal team chose to compromise under pressure, signaling that the Trump administration has significantly stepped up its efforts against CCP infiltrators this year. Meanwhile, the U.S. government is also targeting a third group of infiltrators, long-term illegal immigrants, including many Chinese illegal immigrants who entered the U.S. in recent years, particularly last year. Trump has long stated that many of these individuals are CCP military personnel and pose significant dangers. Recently, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) has launched a large-scale enforcement operation, with one of its main objectives being to identify dangerous CCP military infiltrators.
突发，洛杉矶又有一家仓库酒吧被突袭。
Breaking news. Another warehouse bar in Los Angeles was raided. On the night of July 19th, law enforcement raided a warehouse and bar in Monterey Park, Los Angeles. This time, the raid took place at 10501 Warehouse, and a dozen people were taken away. Many family members rushed to get help overnight, and on the 20th, we received multiple calls from concerned families. This raid involved a joint operation by the FBI, CBP, and ICE. This morning, 2 families asked us to represent them in their cases. When something like this happens, it's overwhelming for the families. They don't know what to do or where to start. The common concerns are, where have the people been taken? Can they be released? Will they be deported? What's next step? Over the past year, we've handled nearly 100 bail and parole cases, so we are very familiar with the process and policies.
The video shows a law office that mostly represents Chinese immigrants who have entered the US illegally. The warehouse numbers it revealed suggest that the area is home to large, well-organized hiding spots for illegal immigrants. It is part of a systematic, established illegal immigrant network. Looking at the number of cases it handles, nearly 100 have been reported in the past year alone. These are just the cases that were caught. If we factor in those that went undetected, the number of illegal immigrants in this small area is massive. Could there be CCP military personnel among them? It's highly likely, and there may be quite a few. Given this, the US is stepping up its efforts to target illegal immigrants once again. Acting Director of ICE Todd Leons said in an interview with CBS News on July 20th that ICE will arrest all people illegally residing in the US, even if they have no criminal record. The agency will also focus on tracking down on employers who hired undocumented workers. Leons explained that ICE will prioritize deporting illegal immigrants with serious criminal records. However, if other illegal immigrants are found during operations, they will also be arrested. He noted that some cities and states that implement sanctuary policies refuse to turn over non-citizen detainees to ICE, forcing agents to carry out arrests within communities, which has led to an increase in collateral arrests. Leon stated that ICE aims to focus on criminal immigrants identified by local or state law enforcement as public safety threats and who are already in custody. However, when local authorities do not cooperate, ICE is forced to enter communities to make arrests. He emphasized that ICE will arrest anyone illegally residing in the US, as required by law. Under the previous administration, ICE enforcement focused mainly on individuals with serious criminal records, national security risks, or recent illegal entries. Since President Trump's re-election, ICE has broadened its immigration law enforcement efforts. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller set a goal of arresting 3,000 people daily. While that goal has not been reached, Congress has allocated billions of dollars to enhance deportation and law enforcement capabilities. Leon stated that since the new administration took office, ICE has fully resumed and was carrying out its enforcement duties. He also pointed out that ICE will intensify its efforts against illegal labor and employers who break the law. Recently, hundreds of suspected undocumented workers have been arrested at workplaces in Nebraska, Louisiana, and California, including 10 minors. When asked if employers will be held responsible, Leons responded, 100%. We have to hold these American businesses accountable. He stressed that these actions not only address immigration law violations, but also tackle issues like forced labor and human trafficking. Analysts suggest that the policy of arresting all illegal immigrants, even those without criminal records, sends a strong message with clear intentions against the CCP. Many CCP infiltrators, including military personnel, have entered the US over the past year, and most of them have no criminal records. These individuals are considered to be the most dangerous. Why is there also a stronger focus on cracking down on employers hiring illegal labor? Because many Chinese-owned businesses such as restaurants, massage parlors, bars, and even warehouses have long served as contact points for CCP secret police operating overseas. These places often act as first stops and safe houses for infiltrators. While this policy may seem broad and challenging to enforce, it is an effective and precise approach. Arrest first, then sort out the details. This strategy gives authorities the upper hand. More importantly, it creates significant pressure on those who have previously been able to slip under the radar. The psychological pressure on them will increase, and this effect has already been seen within the Chinese community.
A follower from Henan asked me if his friend who went to the US would be deported. First, if he doesn't have legal status, stay hidden. If not, he will definitely be caught. If he says he doesn't want to go back to China, the immigration service will notify his home country within 6 hours. If his home country promises that he won't face harm after returning, he will be deported immediately. If he can't prove his passport, can't prove he's Chinese, and doesn't want to go back, he could be sent to another country, like in Africa. Yes, Africa. Right now, in the US, even H-1B visa holders, PhDs, postdocs or tech workers, if they get laid off, are given 6 months to find a new job. Some people during these 6 months of job hunting have received summons for deportation hearings. So I'll say again, if you can go back as soon as possible. Because both immigration services and Trump have said that they will catch people. Even if you have a green card or citizenship, if you've committed fraud, whether it's immigration fraud or welfare fraud, they will investigate you.
The lawyer representing the case made an important point. Anyone who can return should, and those involved in fraud will not escape. Some have pointed out that while not everyone involved in fraud is necessarily a CCP member or infiltrator, CCP infiltrators are always liars and fraudsters. Currently, it is almost impossible for CCP members to obtain a US visa through normal procedures, and it is even more unlikely they could get a green card or citizenship. From a certain perspective, the US and China have already started a war. The CCP has been waging an unrestricted warfare on the US for years, and the US has officially responded. The Trump administration's crackdown on enemies of the US has now expanded from domestic efforts to global actions. Recently, a CCP spy was arrested in Italy and is facing extradition to the US. Some on Chinese social media have compared the case to the Meng Wanzhou case. Meng Wanzhou, deputy chair of Huawei, was placed under house arrest in Canada in 2018. The US requested for her extradition, accusing her of bank and wire fraud related to violating US sanctions against Iran. On July 8th, the US Department of Justice announced the arrest of a hacker in Italy, who was funded by China's Ministry of State Security and the Shanghai State Security Bureau. The hacker now faces multiple felony charges. The hacker, 33-year-old Xu Ziwei, was arrested on July 3rd at Milan Malpensa Airport. On July 8th, a grand jury in the Southern District of Texas unsealed an indictment against Xu and his accomplice, 44-year-old Zhang Yu. They are accused of participating in a series of hacking operations between 2020 and 2021, including the large-scale cyberattack codenamed Hafnium, which affected thousands of computers worldwide and impacted over 12,700 US organizations. The indictment details how these cyber attacks were directed and supervised by China's Ministry of State Security and the Shanghai State Security Bureau. The targets include US universities, research institutions, law firms, and companies using exchange mail servers, with the goal of stealing sensitive data, including information about COVID-19 vaccine research and government policies. Xu and Zhang worked together on multiple hacking operations, with the Shanghai State Security Bureau acting as the command center for stealing large amounts of emails and data. At the time of the hacks, Xu worked for Shanghai Power Rock Network Technology Co. Limited. The company is one of the many contracted hacker outsourcing firms in China, which have long been tasked by the CCP to carry out cyber attacks and provide technical support to national security agencies. According to the indictment, Xu traveled to Guangzhou twice in 2024 and 2025 to meet with officials from China's Ministry of State Security to discuss payment and assignments. This case highlights how Beijing uses underground hacker companies like PowerRock to conduct cyberattacks while hiding official connections. Xu faces 9 charges, including conspiracy to commit wire fraud and 2 accounts of wire fraud, with each charge carrying a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. According to the Italian news agency ANSA, Xu arrived in Italy on July 3rd for vacation, where he was arrested at Milan Malpensa Airport by Italian police under a US-issued arrest warrant. Xu's accomplice, whose name is Zhang Yu, is still at large, and the FBI is calling for anyone with information to come forward. The U.S. Department of Justice's Office of International Affairs is currently assisting Italian authorities with the extradition process. Nicholas Gange, a U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Texas, said, "The indictment alleges that Xu was hacking and stealing crucial COVID-19 research at the behest of the Chinese government, while that same government was simultaneously withholding information about the virus and its origins." The Southern District of Texas has been waiting years to bring Xu to justice, and that day is nearly at hand. As this case shows, even if it takes years, we will track hackers down and make them answer for their crimes. The United States does not forget. The final act of the showdown between the US and Communist China has begun. The Trump administration's crackdown on CCP members is underway, and many more new developments are expected in the near future.
Where are you from?
India.
India.
China.
China.
Yeah.
China. China.
A major shakeup occurred recently within the Chinese community in the United States. A video posted on Instagram asking for help has caused a huge uproar online. In the video, the man is pinned against the wall by at least 2 strong women who are also putting handcuffs on him. The video captures him shouting "help" in Chinese as he tries to break free. However, his chances of escaping appear slim. Soon, 2 large men wearing masks approached from the opposite side of the street. They first instruct a woman nearby to open the car door, and then, together with the 2 women who had been restraining the man, they force him into the vehicle. In the video, the Chinese man claims that there are 5 ICE, US Immigration and Custom Enforcement agents involved, all dressed in plain clothes and wearing masks. According to reports in recent immigration reinforcement actions in several cities in Southern California, a number of agents were not wearing uniforms and had their faces covered, a tactic known as undercover operations targeting illegal immigrants in the US. This is due to an order issued by the Trump administration on June 15th, which directed ICE to implement the largest ever illegal immigration deportation plan, focusing on cities with high concentrations of illegal immigrants such as Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. Statistics based on identity show that among the illegal immigrants arrested in the New York area, the largest group is Ecuadorian citizens, making up 20.9% of the total. Among the countries of origin of those arrested, China ranks first among all non-Latin American countries. In the first 6 months of 2025, 103 Chinese citizens were arrested. In just 3 weeks, arrests of Chinese illegal migrants increased tenfold year on year. On June 3rd, ICE chartered a flight from Dallas to deport 122 Chinese nationals, including 96 men and 26 women. The oldest passenger was 68 years old and the youngest was only 19. This operation was led by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the ICE Dallas office. However, an investigation by journalists revealed that most of those arrested had been involved in certain criminal activities. Federal authorities stated that individuals on the deportation flights violated U.S. immigration laws, with some being convicted of crimes such as murder, human trafficking, and drug trafficking. A government report listed the ages and genders of 5 Chinese individuals convicted of serious crimes and did not disclose their names. While the controversy surrounding this policy is still ongoing, ICE recently released an internal memorandum announcing a comprehensive detention policy for illegal immigrants, removing their rights to request bail hearing during the deportation process. This news was first reported by the Washington Post. According to documents obtained by the paper, on July 8th, acting ICE Director Todd M. Lyons issued a memorandum instructing law enforcement personnel nationwide to detain illegal immigrants throughout the deportation process without release. U.S. immigration lawyer Chen Chuang pointed out that once illegal immigrants are detained by the immigration authorities, they can no longer apply for bail in immigration court and can only request parole from ICE. He emphasized that although detainees' court procedures are the same as those of incarcerated foreigners, they still need to submit evidence, call witnesses, and undergo cross-examination. The difficulty of gathering evidence increases due to limited access between lawyers and clients during detention, and the court proceedings move faster. This is particularly challenging in remote immigration detention centers where communication is even more restricted. Manager Wang from law offices of Susan Ching also stated that according to the newly released memorandum, any illegal immigrants sent to an immigration detention center during the deportation or court process due to violations will lose their bail eligibility. He reminded that individuals who enter the U.S. illegally and have been here for more than 10 or 8 years must be especially cautious. Once they violate the relevant regulations, ICE has the authority to arrest them. This new rule only applies to illegal immigrants, not those who entered legally with a visa. Upon the release of the ICE memorandum, the Chinese immigrant community immediately reacted, as many of the illegal immigrants in recent years are among those targeted for enforcement under the new directive. Immigration law experts have pointed out that this regulation is not limited to a few states but applies nationwide, meaning all illegal immigrants will be affected, whether they entered recently or have been living in the United States long term. Ironically, the Chinese authorities have remained largely silent on the cycle of Chinese fleeing the U.S. deportations. At a routine press conference, a spokesperson simply reiterated the Chinese regime's firm opposition to any form of illegal immigration and stated that, in principle, China will accept the deportation of Chinese nationals who have been verified and confirmed by mainland China. As for the reasons, political commentators believe that the recent order by Trump to arrest individuals is not without basis. According to statistics, criminal records among Chinese nationals in the U.S. have surged in recent years. Data show that, so far this year, the number of arrests involving individuals with criminal convictions have increased by 143%, reaching 675 people, compared to 278 last year. The number of arrests involving individuals facing criminal charges has increased by 178%, reaching 342 people compared to 123 last year. In addition, ICE recently arrested 3 Chinese illegal immigrants in upstate New York for allegedly defrauding elderly individuals. The amounts involved ranges from $20,000 to over $90,000. According to a statement released by ICE, the suspect Jian Chen was arrested in Potsdam, New York. ICE stated that Chen is accused of defrauding a 63-year-old retired woman of $42,000 through deception and misrepresentation, and then attempting to obtain an additional $98,000 from the same victim. He was arrested by investigators during a scheduled in-person transaction. Chen has been transferred to federal immigration authorities and is awaiting deportation proceedings. Another suspect, Yang Ri-Hui, was arrested on May 29th in the city of Massena. Federal investigators stated that Yang is accused of attempting to defraud an elderly couple of their $20,000 savings. Additionally, he faces similar charges in Wyoming County, New York. Both individuals are currently detained by ICE, no bail allowed, and are awaiting deportation proceedings. Erin Keegan, the head of the Special Agent Office for the Buffalo Division of Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, pointed out that recent operations highlight ICE's determination to combat transnational criminal organizations and protect local communities. She stated, "We will never stand idly by while bad actors, in this case, illegally present Chinese nationals, target innocent New Yorkers for their own selfish gain." In June 2025 announcement, ICE reported that a federal grand jury in Virginia indicted 2 Chinese nationals accusing them of attempting to illegally smuggle radiation-hardened microcrystals, a defense export restricted item, to China via black market channels for military and aerospace projects. Reports suggest that this case illustrates how some illegal or suspiciously identified Chinese technical personnel in the U.S. engage in sensitive technology smuggling to serve the Chinese military industrial needs. In June 2025, the Massachusetts Department of Justice indicted 7 Chinese nationals, including Jian Shongchen, accusing them of leading a network that laundered over 90 million yuan annually. The channel included illegal immigration, Mexico border transit, drug trafficking, and wage remittances. Chen not only operated drug greenhouses across the US, but also provided transportation and hiding support for his fellow illegal immigrants. Moreover, some experts believe that while the Trump administration focus appears to be on criminal activities, it also targets the gray industry chain behind Chinese illegal immigration to the US. According to insiders, human traffickers, or snakeheads, are responsible for organizing groups to cross mountains and borders. They often collude with local Mexican truck drivers, family-owned inns in border towns, and Chinese restaurant owners to form a transitional multi-ethnic intermediary network. In these border towns, small family inns operated by Chinese nationals often serve dual purposes, providing shelter for newly arrived illegal immigrants and offering services like translation and document forgery. Soon after, underground labor brokers recruit new recruits through WeChat groups and secret codes, recommending them to Chinese employers in industries with constant labor shortages, such as Chinese restaurants, warehouses, massage parlors, or construction teams. These employers often attract undocumented workers by offering cash pay, which helps reduce cost and allows them to disassociate from responsibility in case of an ICE raid. The labor brokers take a commission ranging from 10% to 20% of each worker's monthly salary, with annual earnings often reaching millions of dollars. Additionally, forged documents and visa services are a key part of the gray chain. Some illegal immigrants pay brokers to obtain so-called FAS island passports, such as those from Micronesia, the Marshall Islands, or Palau, allowing them to legally enter the US and later switch back to a Chinese passport, therefore circumventing US immigration controls. Others register for educational or business visas in Southeast Asian countries, then make their way to the Mexican border. The broker fees for these operations often range from $40,000 to $50,000. The more complex issue is the rise of pre-trial legal services. Some so-called asylum officers, under the guise of offering fast-track cards, charge hefty consultation fees to draft political asylum applications for illegal immigrants, even helping to fabricate prosecution evidence. The U.S. Department of Justice exposed back in 2012 that Chinese lawyers and translators have conspired to forge over 10,000 political persecution documents, with more than 30 lawyers involved. Today, this asylum industry has quietly resurfaced in the Chinese community, with each application charging thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. The flow of funds relies on the underground banks. Illegal immigrants first pay the substantial brokerage fees to the remittance points in China. Then, through underground channels, the US dollars or RMB are transferred within the US to intermediaries and employers. Underground banks operate with a service fee of 2% to 4%, with monthly transaction volumes reaching hundreds of millions of RMB. These financial networks not only support the daily operations of the illegal immigration industry, but also provide a covert channel for money laundering activities, both domestically and internationally. In summary, the grey industry chain of Chinese illegal immigration has formed across multiple nodes globally. It not only meets the urgent need for outlets among illegal immigrants, but also allows countless intermediaries and black market players to profit. Faced with such an underground system, law enforcement and regulation are extremely challenging. Any shift in policy could trigger the next wave of illegal immigration, with intermediaries still operating in the shadows. In addition to running the grey industry chain for personal gain, many illegal immigrants are also seriously jeopardizing U.S. interests. According to a report by the Houston Chronicle on June 27, 2025, Lai Renlei, a Chinese national, was arrested in Texas and charged as an unregistered agent of the Chinese government. He allegedly handed $20,000 in cash to an accomplice to recruit U.S. Navy personnel to provide sensitive information to Chinese intelligence agencies. Federal investigators pointed out that Lai had another accomplice. Yunans Chen had been monitoring and approaching Chinese-American Navy personnel for years, even photographing the interior of U.S. aircraft carriers, with the intent to gather military intelligence for the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. As early as 2024, secret Chinese police stations appeared in downtown Manhattan, operated by Lu Jianwang and Chen Jingping. These stations were specifically set up to monitor dissidents among the Chinese diaspora in New York and assist the CCP in suppressing political dissent abroad. Chen Jingping pleaded guilty in May 2025, admitting to conspiring as an illegal foreign agent in violation of the Espionage Act. Both individuals are currently awaiting sentencing. These cases highlight that some Chinese nationals in the US with illegal or suspicious immigration status engage not only in economic crimes such as fraud, money laundering, and drug trafficking, but also participate in CCP activities related to intelligence gathering, public opinion control, and social management. Even as law enforcement agencies increase scrutiny of individuals with suspicious immigration backgrounds, such cases remain difficult to fully prevent. On the other hand, reports also indicate that many of these illegal immigrants are unfortunate individuals whose decisions to immigrate illegally was forced out of necessity. The demand for political and social freedom is a key underlying factor. China's strict zero-COVID policy and control over speech and religion have led some marginalized groups to feel that their space for living has been compressed. These individuals were even punished in terms of education and employment for not complying with pandemic measures, participating in small protests, or expressing their opinions. The New York Times once interviewed a man named Gao Zhibing who shared his harrowing experience of crossing into the US with his daughter. He said the most terrifying part of their journey was trekking through the dangerous jungle of Panama's Darien Gap. Gao, 39, recalled that on the first day of the trip he suffered from heat stroke. On the second day, his feet swelled. Due to dehydration exhaustion, he had to discard his tent, moisture-proof sleeping mat, and spare clothes. Later, his 13-year-old daughter fell ill. She lay on the ground, vomiting repeatedly, her face pale and running a fever, clutching her stomach. Along the way, they could only move slowly through the muddy and treacherous rainforest of the Darien Gap. Resting every 10 minutes, it wasn't until 9 p.m. that they finally reached their destination, a campsite in Panama. Gao said he felt he had no choice but to leave China and believed that only by reaching the US would he be safe. He also expressed his belief that Chinese leader Xi Jinping would lead the country into famine and possibly even war. "This is a rare opportunity to protect myself and my family," he said. Another man, Mr. Wei from Jiangsu, China, who also smuggled into the US, shared that he had been taken away by the police in China for bypassing the Great Firewall to browse overseas websites and leaving comments on YouTube and X platform. After arriving in the US, he truly felt the safety and kindness of a free society. For them, the freedom of speech and rule of law in the US seems to offer more protection. This psychological need for the pursuit of freedom and rights has driven a group of young people who witnessed or experienced suppression during the pandemic to take risks, braving the danger of crossing jungles and deserts, all in search of a relatively freer environment in which to live. One user wrote, "In Xi Jinping's China, anyone could become a target of the state's crackdown. If you are a Christian, a Muslim, an Uyghur or Tibetan, or a Mongol, you could face trouble. If you are a worker protesting unpaid wages, or a homeowner protesting developers' failure to deliver homes, or a student crossing the firewall to access Instagram, or a CCP official found reading banned books, you will face trouble." Economic factors serve as another direct driver. Since the pandemic, China's economic growth has slowed and the unemployment rate has risen, especially among those without high education or specialized skills. The local job market's ability to absorb low-skilled workers has significantly decreased. Many young people facing low wages and higher living costs believe that working in the US not only allows them to earn more money, but also helps them accumulate wealth faster. Meanwhile, the smuggling strategies and success stories shared on social media have made illegal work in the US seem like a viable shortcut solution, especially when one can receive work permits and social security numbers after 6 months of entry into the US. This enter first, seek asylum later, and work legally during the waiting period model has attracted a large number of Chinese individuals eager to change their fate. This storm of a tenfold increase in arrest of Chinese nationals is not.
On July 29, 2025, ICE agents targeted a Chinese man in Monterey Park, a core Chinese area in Los Angeles. Surveillance footage shows a man in a light green shirt, nervously glancing around, seemingly on edge, but in fact, an ICE vehicle was parked right in front of his car, making it clear that ICE had already tracked his movements and was ready to make an arrest. As the man loaded 2 buckets of water into his trailer, an ICE agent got out of the car and pretended to help him by moving a garbage can blocking the way, but this was just a ruse. Soon, 4 more agents appeared from different directions, surrounding him and putting handcuffs on him. The agent who got out of the car then pulled out a device that resembled a phone to confirm the man's identity. The man was then escorted into the SUV and driven away. This incident took place in front of the Siegel Supermarket, across from Dingpangzi Plaza, also known as the Garfield Lincoln Center. This area is home to many Chinese businesses, including restaurants, supermarkets, hair salons, gold shops, and pharmacies, making it a well-known Chinese commercial hub. For many, this is the first stop when they arrive in the U.S., but life here is tough. People work illegally, live in hidden spaces, and constantly fear being caught by ICE. The video quickly spread on Chinese social media. One commenter wrote, "It's obvious he's Chinese. After living abroad for so many years, I've noticed that many older Chinese people have this odd habit of standing with their hands behind their backs." Another said, "Clearly he's been targeted. Either he's guilty or has a deportation order against him." In recent years, several underground sex crime gangs within the Chinese community have been dismantled, exposing shocking, dark operations behind them. On July 19th, federal law enforcement raided another underground nightclub in Los Angeles, arresting dozens of people and seizing large amounts of criminal evidence, including drugs. Authorities stated that this nightclub was suspected of colluding with domestic organized crime groups. The video shows the nightclub hidden inside an inconspicuous commercial office building, with black reflective glass that made it appear abandoned from the outside. Inside, however, was a luxurious, modern nightclub with lighting, sound systems, and private rooms. When law enforcement raided the place, a white sedan quickly fled the parking lot, nearly colliding with a fire truck with its lights flashing. 2 Chinese men ran into the street. Armed agents outside shouted, "Open the door." Law enforcement agencies did not disclose the total number of people arrested, but mentioned that 9 individuals were detained for violating immigration laws and have entered the deportation process. On July 20th, the Los Angeles division of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration posted on social media. Images showed dozens of men being handcuffed and sitting on the ground, a few Chinese women in tight tops and shorts, and law enforcement seizing large amounts of drugs, drug paraphernalia, credit cards, entire boxes of gift cards, and gambling equipment. Criminal gangs often operate in hidden places like apartment buildings or massage parlors. Many of these businesses run under legal names such as foot massage or spa centers, but secretly engage in sex trade activities. The level of concealment makes law enforcement efforts more challenging. This was the second Chinese underground nightclub raided by federal agencies in the Los Angeles area in the past 2 months. On May 30th, ICE's Homeland Security Investigations Los Angeles Division, in cooperation with other agencies, raided a warehouse in Industry City, Los Angeles. Around 60 to 70 Chinese individuals were found inside, using drugs and partying. Some were sitting with their heads down, trying to hide their faces, as a helicopter circled above. 36 people without legal status were arrested on the spot. Most of them had entered the U.S. illegally and only had work permits. The underground nightclub charged an entry fee of $40 to $50, with people singing, partying, and drugs scattered around. Sources revealed that the place lacked fire extinguishers, and in case of a fire, no one would be able to escape. Among the arrested, most were Chinese nationals who entered the U.S. through illegal means. Some had already received deportation orders or were facing immediate removal. The arresting team specialized in money laundering. This operation may have uncovered the illicit financial operations of underground money exchange businesses. In many cases, the criminal gangs behind sex trafficking not only profit from the activities, but also control the workers through threats, violence, and by confiscating their passports, forcing them to continue working. Most of the workers involved are economically disadvantaged women, including immigrants and low-income groups. They often lack language skills and may have been tricked by illegal agencies into working in the sex industry. These underground sex operations also disturb local residents. Some have complained that their neighborhoods have become more dangerous due to these activities, with suspicious individuals frequently seen entering and exiting massage parlors. On July 30th, law enforcement in Louisiana raided multiple massage parlors, arresting 2 Chinese owners who are accused of running illegal prostitution and operating without a license. The arrested individuals are 38-year-old Wu Yu Zhang and 56-year-old Feng Ru Lian. Investigations revealed that they ran 2 massage parlors in East Baton Rouge, Magnolia Spa and Oriental Relax Spa. According to arrest records, Wu Yuzheng opened a spa near Jefferson Highway in St. George in 2023, but later received a closure order in 2024 for operating without a license. During this time, several residents reported ongoing sex trade activities at the location. Young Asian women who couldn't speak English were seen wearing revealing attire and only wrapped in bathrobes standing on the street. Witnesses also reported seeing men frequently entering the back door of the massage parlor, which was only separated from residential homes by a wall. Feng Rulian's Oriental Relax Spa also faced multiple closure orders due to operating without a license. Police also pointed out that both of the individuals posted illegal advertisements online, offering sexy young girls and other suggestive services. Additionally, ICE agents discovered 2 Chinese prostitutes who were illegal immigrants and added them to the deportation list. Recently, a large-scale fake driver's license case has shaken the Chinese community across the U.S. The mastermind behind helping illegal Chinese immigrants obtain New York driver's licenses, Feng Shu, was arrested on July 18th in Albertville, Alabama. Investigations show that a driving school in Flushing, Queens, New York, posted ads targeting the Chinese community on social media, claiming there was no written or road test. They offered to help customers cheat on the exams and guaranteed a legitimate driver's license. Once customers arrived, the school would either forge their exam identities or bribe DMV examiners to directly issue a license. The school charged between $1,600 and $2,000 per customer, targeting Chinese immigrants who could not speak English. Many of these clients didn't even know how to drive. Feng Shu also worked as a chef at the Chowking restaurant. When he was arrested, ICE also took 6 restaurant employees into custody, suspected of being illegal immigrants. Feng Shu is currently held at Marshall County Jail, with no bail as he awaits trial. Feng Shu's arrest uncovered the tip of the iceberg in a Chinese community's fake driver's license operation. Unbeknownst to many, he controlled a network spanning 3 states. The case involves driving school owners, DMV examiners, and multiple employees, with at least 3 individuals already facing charges. Report from Chinese media suggests that last year alone, the driving school sold over 2,000 fake licenses, meaning many people without driving abilities were on the road, posing a serious public safety risk. The tragic incidents caused by drivers who slipped through the cracks are equally shocking. Last year, the driver involved in a 5-car pileup in Brooklyn had a receipt from T&E driving school, and his road test record showed a perfect score on turns, yet the surveillance footage showed him knocking over 3 cones in a row. The scope of the driver's license fraud case continues to expand, with several Chinese individuals recently arrested by ICE for illegally purchasing fake licenses. On July 16th, a Chinese man in Pennsylvania was driving when he was suddenly ambushed by 4 law enforcement officers who conducted a search. The police took him to his residence and arrested his relatives. The man said, "I didn't understand what was happening at first. I was handcuffed and brought home. Only then did I realize they were there to arrest my relatives." The police suspect that his relative's driver's license was not obtained through a formal test, but was purchased through T&E driving school. The case is now under a fugitive search. The man speculated that the police may have tracked him down through the address and emergency contact information his relative filled out when applying for the license. Another Chinese immigrant revealed that his brother was also arrested by the police recently. He said, "The police knocked on the door, barged in, handcuffed my brother, and showed us documents saying he had bought the license." The informant added that the police used a translation app to communicate with the family, making the whole process alarming and distressing. The related arrests are ongoing, and many in the Chinese community who obtained their licenses through this driving school are now worried and fearful of becoming the next target of the investigation. It is said that purchasing an illegal driver's license may be seen as participating in fraud, with penalties such as fines, imprisonment, or community service. Given that illegal immigrants are the primary target group for purchasing fake licenses, ICE's involvement indicates that if an illegal immigrant status is discovered, it will trigger deportation proceedings. On August 6, a manager named Wang from a law firm told foreign media that he had just turned down a client involved in the Flushing T&E driving school case. Wang said, "This person bought a license from the driving school, got caught, and his family came to us for help yesterday, but we told them there was nothing we could do. They'll have to wait for deportation." He emphasized, anyone who enters the country illegally and commits a criminal offense will definitely be targeted by ICE, and they'll enter the deportation process. Recently, a Fujian-based influencer posted on Douyin, revealing the process of the T&E driving school being shut down.
The driving school in Queens, New York is accused of long-term bribery of DMV examiners and assisting a large number of Chinese illegal immigrants, including those who cannot drive, to obtain illegal driver's licenses. Several people are involved in the case, and 8 individuals from the driving school and DMV personnel being charged and arrested. The targeted individuals are mostly Fujian residents. The scandal was exposed when an internal DMV staff member noticed suspicious activity. The police then deployed undercover agents who spoke Fujian dialect, posing as students. They were able to buy a license by paying between $1,600 and $2,000. During the operation, 150 fake driver's licenses and permits were seized. This case is very large and could involve 1,000 to 2,000 people or even more.
In addition to tracking illegal driver's licenses, there are reports that ICE will use personal data from beneficiaries of Medicaid to track illegal immigrants. This will be the latest move by the Trump administration to combat illegal immigration. According to an AP report on July 17th, 79 million people are enrolled in Medicaid, the Federal Health Assistance Program, also known as the White Card. ICE will soon have access to the Medicaid database, which includes information such as home addresses and ethnicity. The AP reported that, based on an agreement signed between the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services and the Department of Homeland Security, the Medicaid data will allow immigration agents to track the location of foreign nationals across the country. Social media platforms like X and WeChat shows that the Chinese community is becoming more fearful of ICE raids and data tracking like Medicaid. Many people are afraid to seek medical care, report crimes, or apply for legal status. Recently, there have been several cases of Chinese individuals being arrested by ICE in Brooklyn, New York. A local Chinese bakery owner confirmed that the incident took place on the morning of July 15th, when multiple ICE agents took 3 Chinese individuals who were living upstairs into custody. Another case involved the mother of a Chinese student attending a public school in the 43rd District who was arrested during a routine check-in with immigration authorities, leaving her 4 children at home. It was reported that some people were deported within 2 weeks of their arrest, while others were held for months or even sent to a third country. Additionally, a man visiting New York and staying in a hotel was arrested at the airport while preparing to board a domestic flight. He had a passport but was detained for lacking legal status. This type of situation is becoming more common. Since Trump's second term began, immigration enforcement has significantly intensified. In New York, for example, according to the latest data, from January 20th to the end of June, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested at least 2,365 immigrants in the New York area. The immigration policy has shifted from prioritizing the deportation of criminals to a broader approach of removing individuals with illegal status. In recent years, some Chinese people have endured great hardships, traveling through Central and South America to eventually enter the U.S. illegally. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection data, since China reopened its borders after the COVID-19 lockdown in January 2023, over 63,000 Chinese citizens have fled and crossed the U.S.-Mexico border without authorization, making them the 4th largest group of immigrants, following those from Venezuela, Haiti, and Ecuador. CBP data also shows that in the 2024 fiscal year, 24,214 Chinese citizens were arrested at the southern border, an increase of over 8,000% compared to the 2021 fiscal year. Furthermore, by the first half of 2024, arrests had already exceeded the total for the entire 2023 fiscal year. In fact, many of these Chinese illegal immigrants are fleeing the Chinese government's strict censorship system and growing political oppression. They come from China's middle class or working class backgrounds, some of whom have enough financial resources to pay tens of thousands of dollars in fees, but not enough to enter the U.S. legally through investment immigration or student visas. The COVID lockdown and economic slowdown have caused small business owners and self-employed individuals to lose their livelihoods, pushing them to take risks. For example, a 27-year-old female immigrant's daycare business went bankrupt due to the zero-COVID policy, and she was forced to leave her family. She chose to cross into the U.S. illegally. These immigrants are victims of the Chinese Communist Party's high-pressure policies, and now they face the risk of deportation from the U.S. Caught in this difficult situation, their survival is becoming increasingly difficult.